Good evening. I will call to order a Wilsonville City Council meeting for whatever day of June we're up to here. What is it? June 3rd, 2019 at 7:10 p.m. and request a roll call, please.
Councillor West.
Here.
Councillor Stevens.
Here.
Council President Ackerval.
Here.
Councillor Lehan.
Here.
Mayor Knapp.
Here. Would the audience please rise and join us in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would be open to a motion on order of agenda.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the order of agenda.
Second.
Moved and second, we approve order of agenda. Copies are on the counter at the side of the room. Should anyone want one? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. That brings us to, first of all, citizens input and community announcements, which is an opportunity for people to address council on things that are not on the agenda. Also a time to address things that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearing. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to specific questions raised during this portion, either before tonight's meeting ends or as soon as we can thereafter. We do ask you to hold your comments to 3 minutes each, if you would. First of all, I have several representatives of one of the library programs I would like to ask to come up. Ms. Alexander, Ms. Hanson, and Mr. Spence, I think. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Over the past weekend, you probably all received the latest Boone's Ferry Messenger and the beautiful article about Dolly Parton Imagination Library and the Foundation. Mr. Mayor, City Council, Mr. Cosgrove, and staff, we want to talk to you tonight about one extraordinary individual who is on your staff. And that's Mr. Bill Evans. He wrote this. He brought a lot of information, but Ms. Hanson and Ms. Alexander will explain that more. So I'm just here to say we are so pleased that we were able to work with Bill. One fine individual. He's a treasure. You should enjoy him and will for years and years to come.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I'm going to start calling you Mr. Treasure, huh?
Susan or Hilly?
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. You'll probably remember me. I was here on April 15th to talk about Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. I am thrilled that you have actually stepped up to help us get the word out. The Boone's Ferry Messenger goes to every household in the city, and that surely helps us get the word out. It's too early for me to really report on an uptick in registrations, but I can say that we are this close to 800 active in the program, which is wonderful. So I've seen a small uptick. We still see anywhere between 12 and 20 children graduate from the program every month. So as we mentioned last time, you know, it's an ongoing outreach effort, and we appreciate your help. We are also putting these flyers bilingual into the summer reading packets. So we're working hard, and we wanted to say thank you for your help with the outreach.
And I'm also on the foundation board, and working with Bill was really easy. He's very enthusiastic personally about the program and really took the information that we provided and made it come to life even more. And that's so helpful to us for recruitment as well as the fundraising that we do to help support the program. So again, echoing Dick's comments, we were thrilled to have the opportunity to work with him, and he has proposed some ongoing outreach that we can do through the Boone's Ferry Messenger, and we really appreciate that.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Hope it helps help spread the word.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks very much. Let's see, Jamie Arbonne, please.
Greetings, Council, Mayor, all on the staff. I'd just like to say thank you to President Akkerval for meeting with me and setting a meeting time. And I'd also like to invite all of you to join me in discussing lifting the ban on cannabis further in our community. I'd like to take just a moment to quickly remind everybody of what I've spoken about previously, and that separate real estate firms and studies have indicated that in communities where cannabis is legal, crime actually goes lower, property values go higher. And I'd like to give the council an action item of allowing me the ability to get on the agenda and present an educational time to the community members about cannabis and the benefits to the human body. I graduated from Oaksterdam University, which is America's premier cannabis college, and I learned that something that we all thought was bad for us is actually good for us and is helping me in my recovery as a breast cancer patient. Had surgery 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And so the other action item is I'd like to talk with each of you individually and as a group about how our community should not be behind, but along with and maybe in the forefront of leading the charge in cannabis. Oregon has voted to legalize it recreationally. It is legal all around us, and our own community members have to travel to get their medication. Our city is leaving 3% of cannabis sales on the table. The shop that I ran, an award-winning dispensary, 5 times voted the best dispensary in the state, paid over $150,000 in taxes, one store, 1 year. That's a lot that can be done for our community, especially with 40% of those funds going to our schools. So I'd like to invite the council to talk with me both further privately, individually, via emails that I have sent. I would like to also ask to be given more than 3 minutes in a formal educational presentation on why cannabis can be good for our community. And I'd like to be a leader in that space, and instead of traveling out to Beaverton to make their city money, I want to open up one here in our community. I also want to invite you guys to go to KGW and review the latest study that they did. CBD is all the rage. They went and bought a whole bunch of products at regular stores, Plaid Pantry, Walmart, Target, all selling CBD products, Bed Bath & Beyond. And then they went and bought those similar products at dispensaries. They found less than 20% of the products at your retail stores had the amount of CBD in it that was stated on the bottle. In the dispensaries, we're regulated by OLCC, so every single item in the store has to be followed from seed to sale. And those items were actually shown to have the amount in the bottles as advertised on the label. So you've got a couple of community members selling CBD on street corners, or you can have your own community professional offer to give you what we're advertising and 3% of all of our sales. I'd like to ask the council to continue to reconsider. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I'd like to remind you that this was put to a vote of the public. The public, not this council, the public said they did not want to have these here in town, and I think...
Correct, Mayor, that was 2 years ago?
Please do not interrupt.
I apologize, sir.
If you wish, any citizen can undertake a ballot initiative to change a rule in the city, and that would be then on the advocates to collect the signatures and put it on the ballot to see if the citizens feel differently. It certainly, in my view, is not practical to put the same question to the voters every 2 years. It doesn't allow us to do everything else that we need to do. So I think that a certain amount of the responsibility to do what you're asking lies with the community of advocates.
I'd be delighted to step up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Steiger.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I was expecting to testify before Resolution 2750, but I can do it now.
We can hold for that if you would like. There is a public hearing at that time.
That's fine. My name is Alan Steiger. I reside at 7054 Southwest Cedar Point Drive here in Wilsonville. I am a retired CPA, and while I was in public accounting, I was a licensed municipal auditor. I have served on the Wilsonville Budget Committee for 6 years and have maintained my interest in the past 2 years by continuing to attend Budget Committee meetings as a citizen. I've also reviewed the budget in some detail. Regarding the 2019-2020 budgets for the city of Wilsonville and the urban renewal, I believe they have been prepared on a conservative fiscal basis, while with an eye on maintaining the level of service provided to the citizens of Wilsonville, which in the past they have endorsed. I urge council to adopt those budgets without amendment. As a past Budget Committee chair and as a citizen of Wilsonville, I am somewhat disappointed in councilor attendance, especially those without prior notification of non-attendance in this year's budget discussions. I believe these meetings are the ones to answer any questions you have, discuss concerns, gather the information to make informed decisions. I sincerely hope these absences do not affect the deliberations you will be having tonight. Again, I urge council to adopt the budgets which were passed by the Budget Committee after due consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Badile.
Good morning, all. My name is John Badillo. I live at 7278 Southwest Beauchene Court here in Wilsonville. First, Susie, I'd like to thank you for serving, and I hear you're leaving travel. Thank you for serving. Stepping up always is a hard thing to do. For most people, it's always easy to let other people take charge and go along with it. I know there's an appointment that the mayor gets to appoint, and I just want to restate that I'm still interested in serving on the council. I have spent more than half my life serving, whether it's military, Boy Scouts, volunteering. For the last almost 2 decades here in Wilsonville, I've always been in the background, helped out, volunteered where I could, helped out at the library, workday. And I'd just like to say my interest overwhelmingly is here in Wilsonville. I brag about Wilsonville almost every single place I go. And Ben knows this. They always say I live in the Wizard of Oz area because they can't believe, just like what we discussed upstairs, we're in a convenient area on the I-5 corridor that hardly anybody notices, but it's a great place to live. In keeping with that, I devote myself entirely, just like the gentleman pointed out, I applied for the Budget Committee. I didn't get that. I've just been awarded Air Force Medal for controlling a $2.3 billion sale of military assets to another country. I was in charge of a squadron that was $1.7 million annual training, budgeting, forecasting, quarterly. I had to answer to multiple people. Projects, God, you name it, whether it's deployments, training, and building relationships. So I'd just like to put forth publicly that I'm still interested. I bring a wealth of knowledge. I, first and foremost, like to work with everybody, whether I agree with them or disagree with them. It helps me to broaden my horizons, and so that's what I offer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Evening, councilors and mayor.
Good evening.
My name is Kate Johnson, as you know. I have a letter just to dovetail off of Mr. Badillo here that I want to address to the council and mayor. Dear City Council and Mayor Knapp, my family has lived in Wilsonville since the late 1980s, and I've had the honor of serving on several voluntary boards since 2009. One of those volunteer positions was participating in Wilsonville's first class of Citizens Academy, otherwise known as Leadership Academy. As you're aware, I currently serve on Dial-A-Ride Board and on the Parks and Recs Board. It continues to be a positive experience, engaging and collaborating with other volunteers and voices from the Wilsonville community. Over the past 10 years, I have seen the city grow and prosper from a population of roughly 9,000 to now over 25,000. In that time, the city of Wilsonville has been taking steps to maintain its positive livability while positioning itself for growth. Today, when I reflect on where we are over the last 10 years and where we're headed, I'm both excited and concerned. Excited because Wilsonville is a great place to live, work, and play. Concerned because I continue to witness strife in our community, neighboring communities, where a growing number of citizens are expressing that they want another balanced and qualified voice sitting on council, one that has established leadership skills, including the ability to collaborate and work well with others, offering a fresh perspective, an effective communicator, and most importantly, offering another voice for Wilsonville citizens. This decade's taxpayers that are working and raising families also want their future city councilor to be already versed and experienced with balancing budgets. Tonight, I submit to you that John Badillo fits that above description and the definition of what it means to be an excellent city councilor. I met John about a year ago when he was running for city councilor, and I watched firsthand as his passion for his country and for his love for Wilsonville. His energy and dedication to serving others was immeasurable. Once I even asked him on a Sunday afternoon if he was available to stop by and answer some questions from citizens visiting the community center. He dropped by within the hour. There are numerous times over where he has proven that he has outstanding leadership skills and the skill sets to navigate through large budgets. He was endorsed in the last election less than 8 months ago by the Wilsonville Chamber and the spokesman, and he was awarded 2018 Wilsonville's First Citizen. Beyond that, he is a highly decorated 24-year U.S. military veteran officer, and he has accomplished over 400,000 volunteer hours for the city of Wilsonville, scouts, events, schools, Grace Chapel, City Valley Christian Church, and many more events. Given all the reasons above, plus the fact that John just missed being elected in last November's election by roughly 100 votes, maybe 109, it only makes sense that John Badillo will make an excellent city councilor. He has my vote. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all of the speaker cards I have. Anyone else that has not had a chance to submit a card yet? I don't see anybody. Thank you. We will then move along on the agenda. Under mayor's business, we are going to have to talk a little bit about the protocol for council appointment for succession to the vacancy that we're going to have. I think that is probably the biggest thing I need to do, though I didn't end up with a calendar in front of me, so let me check here.
While you're looking,
Yes.
can I answer a question that was brought up upstairs?
Yes, sir.
It's 26.8%.
Okay. I'll write that down.
53 out of 198. Apparently, Ms. Villagrana in the HR department was listening to the conversation, so she texted it to me.
So for the people that were not upstairs and are wondering what you're talking about,
Talking
could you?
about how many employees that work in Wilsonville live in Wilsonville. It's 26.8%.
Oh, that's way higher than I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought, for some reason, I thought it was like 11%, but it's higher than I thought too.
Yeah,
Wow.
fantastic. That's good
And is that inside the city limits or 97070?
Wow.
Wow.
It's not specific. It's 3 lines of text. I'm sorry. I would believe that it's inside the city limits.
Okay, for upcoming meetings, I'm scheduled to meet with the Washington County Chair this week at her request. We'll see what that discussion is about. Probably we'll cover a range of transportation and housing and policy issues, I would guess. Coming up in a couple of weeks, the city is sponsoring a particular what do you call it? The Clackamas County Business Alliance has a sponsor for each meeting that they have, and the city and SMART have stepped up to sponsor the meeting on the 12th. So that will be something where we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about our city and the SMART system with some of the business leaders that participate in the Business Alliance. So that'll be a helpful thing. The Clackamas County Coordinating Committee Annual Planning Retreat is upcoming also between now and our next meeting, so I will be attending that two-day event, and we'll see how the county focus comes into play at that. Beyond that, I think that the question of how we'll deal with the vacancy on council, it's a little bit awkward, Susie, but what can I say?
Can I say something?
Can you say something? You're welcome to say something if you would like.
I think I should. I guess I should have realized it was going to be a big deal, but not this big. So I know I'm causing quite a bit of consternation here, up here. I'm sorry for that, but it's just, I got to tell everybody, this was not an easy decision for me. I've been thinking about it for a long time. And, you know, it took me 15, 20 minutes to push the send button when I let staff and the mayor and fellow councilors sent the letter out saying that I was going to resign. If I could do both of the things I want to do, which is stay on this council and travel as much as I can, I would do both. I just don't, it's just not possible. And I've wanted to travel extensively for a long, long time. And I have that opportunity to do that now. And I want to do it while I'm still strong enough to hike a mountain and, you know, do whatever I want to do and feel strong and healthy enough to do that. I had a sister too who went through breast cancer, and it was sort of, it was definitely a wake-up call for me to watch that happen. She's not that much older than me. And of course, and then I also lost my husband 3 years ago. That was another just sign that says life is short, and I really want to take this. And it is so hard for me to leave this at this point in time, because I feel strongly about making the commitment I did when I ran in 2016 to stay for 4 years. But I'm struggling with it now, as you can tell, you know, but it's the right thing for me to do right now. And I wish the city and staff and this council all the best. And I will be watching from a distance and rooting for you all the way. And who knows, you know, after I get this travel bug out of my system, I may come back on council or certainly volunteer in the city. I'm not leaving this town. I'm just taking enough time off to not be able to go to 2 meetings a month, plus all the other meetings that, you know, come up on our schedules. June is full for me. You know, there's the Kinder Morgan event, there's the electric bus event, there's another council meeting, there's a library board meeting I'm going to go to at the end of the night, or end of the month. We just had budget meetings last week. It's a full agenda for anybody who does this job, and or full schedule. And you got to be here. You got to be in town. So, and I'm just not going to be anymore. So it's been such an honor. It's for the 6.5 years I've been here. It really has, and it has been an enriching experience for me. And I never would have dreamed it when I ran, you know, in 2012, how much it would mean to me to be here. But the timing is right. So thank you all. Thank you all for all you've done and all you will do. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Susie, for all that you've done, too, because you've been a big part of the dialogue that we've had for 6.5 years, and we're better for it. And I appreciate all of your thoughtfulness and your ready wit and smile through all these sometimes contentious discussions. And, you know, that's really a nice character trait.
Just to be clear, this is not your last meeting.
This is not my last meeting. There's one more.
I'll save my comments for the last meeting.
Okay. Well, it seemed apropos because I didn't know this was going to be on the agenda. I didn't get any of the paperwork that the council's talking about tonight. And, you know, I'm stepping back. It's your decision.
Right, council will be acting without you on that.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
So, yeah, so, yeah.
Think about it.
All right.
And
So,
Mr. Mayor, I would just, I will save my comments until the
Right,
next meeting also, except that I have one piece of advice. And that is, if you're going to hike up a mountain, let's not do Everest.
Okay, it wasn't on the bucket list.
Nowhere you need oxygen.
There. Well, then I'm relieved, okay.
all right. Want to talk about process now?
Okay.
So the packet of materials we put in front of the council tonight, the page that shows Chapter 7, vacancies in office, shows under Section 29. And 30, I guess, is really where the vacancy filling process is described. It's not very specific. It says, vacancies in elective offices of the city shall be filled by appointment by a majority of the incumbent membership of council. So without one person, we have 4. So it will take a majority of 4, which is 3, to make a decision on a replacement councilor. So I just point that out to you. Really, that's the only specificity in the charter about how we should do this. Other items that are in this packet, you have got a copy of our application for appointment to boards and commissions, which many of our appointed members have filled out in the past, and lots of other people. And it asks some specific questions, and I just provide that for your reference. I certainly don't think that appointment to council should be any less of a in-depth process than appointment to a board or commission. So I offer you this just for your, refresh your memory on that. You have also in here a couple of pages on the council goals over the last couple of cycles, the one that we've just completed and the goals that we are just now setting. So I think that those are certainly important pieces for anyone seeking appointment to be fully conversant on and expect to talk about if they put in their name for an application. We also have the legislative agenda that this council has adopted, and again, that has policy provisions in it that will be pertinent, I think, to anyone that is seeking to be part of the policy setting of the city. So I think that that is important. We have a schedule of all the meeting dates that are upcoming, and those are both the balance of 2019 and then all of 2020. And so someone that's seeking to be appointed to the chair, I expect will be making themselves available for those meeting dates so that they can actually be a participant in an effective way. Finally, well, I don't know if it's finally or not. There's a single page that lists outside council meetings, which are many of the corollary meetings at the county level, at the regional level, business group level, different organizations that the council interacts with, and that we think it appropriate that councilors make themselves available to be part of the council interaction with these different groups in the community. And there's 20 different organizations on there, and there's 5 of us. So it is a significant piece that I think is part of the council work. And then the last piece is the state required, I don't know if the public knows this, we have to fill out annually a statement of your financial interests, and any elected official in the state has to file this by law. And so any appointee to council better expect to be prepared to fill that out because it is required and there are financial penalties for not doing so. So I offer this packet of materials with a proposal that we meet the standard of our board and commission appointments, which is to post this opening on public media for 30 days and ask for people that are interested to pick up a package that would include all of these materials that are in front of you tonight so that they can be informed on those things. and fill out an application in a formal way, and we'll see what kind of response we get. I do think that we should add a couple other questions, and I have not had time to sit and think in detail about it. We did ask staff to do a survey of cities around us, and we got responses from as far away as Seattle, saying, well, how do you do it? And so we have, I don't know, I haven't even counted, 20 or 30 pages of responses from other cities, almost all of which have some questions that they ask applicants. I'd like to go through that and sort of filter out no more than half a dozen questions, I think, that I would recommend to the council once I've had a chance to do that, and then can ask if council thinks that we've missed anything, I've missed anything that should be asked as a question, and then settle on a set of questions that we would make part of the application process for people to fill out. So that's my recommendation to council for a process, and it isn't fully fleshed out, but that's pretty much the framework of it. I'm open to ideas or discussion if any of council feels like that is not hitting the mark in some way, or something more needs to be done, or something less needs to be done. If you do not, if you're not ready to do that, we're not in a huge rush, but I personally would like to see us get the posting done quite soon, which then would mean we would need to have packets available for applicants to pick up relatively soon. So I'm open to discussion. Councilor West.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. The application for board, the application here that we have in the packet that is available online for boards and commissions, I was going to actually suggest if it was tailored towards a counselor seat.
A little more.
Yeah, a little more tailored and specific, because it'd be some of these would be kind of hard to totally associate to a counselor seat.
I think that that's true also, and that, how we do some questions could be, massaged in there, and maybe some other things don't quite pertain so well that we might drop off of that.
Yeah. And then my question is, I guess is it where the mayor meets and interviews and then brings a list, or do we get into a huddle room together and talk about applications, or how is that process in this situation different than a board or commission?
I've had some thoughts about that and some discussion with a couple different people. The question, if we get 30 applicants,
True.
So if we get 10, if we get 3, the answer might be a little different depending on how we do that. If we get a larger number of applicants, I think we're going to have a process to narrow the field to some finalists. And I think that I should be involved in that. I think the council president should be involved in that. I'm not sure beyond that how we would do that. If we have 3 elected peoples there, they've all got to be posted public meeting with prior notice and all of that stuff. I'm not opposed to them being open to the public, but I'm not really decided on the details of how that would work. I don't think that this council probably wants to meet with more than 3 or 4, maybe 5 finalists at the most. There's really robust section. Each of those interviews could easily be an hour, so there's 5 hours of extracurricular, time for this counselor, for the council. And those, if we have a full council, do have to be published ahead of time and have to be public meetings. And so I'm kind of playing it by ear a little bit at this point, I guess, as to the answer to your question.
I like the idea as public as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a lot of applications. And then, I don't know, maybe you also take some of that burden and spread it out. Let's say there are 30, that'd be a lot, I'm guessing, but spread it out between the whole council and maybe interview process that way, or multiple interviews, or something like you would almost do for a job or something. But when we get down to maybe the last 10 or so, making that as absolutely public as possible, I think would be, I think the citizens of Wilsonville would really appreciate that and as transparent as possible, and that I hope that we can all come to a consensus, because I think that we all work well together, and I hope that we can do it in this good and challenging situation. Susie, I'm going to miss you so much. I just want to say that before I say something at the last time here.
Other comments or questions?
Well, I said no, but of course I'm talking. I think what you outline sounds good, and I think it would be reasonable if we have a lot of applicants that you and the council president narrow it down to the top 4. Or it's hard to say because sometimes there are 3 or 4 who really stand out, and the next ones are further down in the pack. So it's an obvious break. And other times it's not such an obvious break, and you might want to have all 5 or wherever it is. But I would be happy to have the 2 of you make that decision for the initial cut, and then we can interview those 3, 4, whoever, however many you decide are reasonable for us to all talk to.
Councilor Akval, thoughts?
I think, what you've suggested is in alignment with what is in the charter, and so that's important, and I support that concept for a process going forward. And we will miss you. Yes.
So it seems like we are kind of in agreement about the general framework, and if that's the case, do we want to ask staff to post the position herewith? Mr. Cosmo?
I've been trying to be a good city manager and push that button.
I know, I didn't know who number 3 was.
That's me. I'm number 3.
You're number 3, okay.
So I'd like you to backdate or think about when you want the person to be in that position. I would need that direction from you. When would you like Susie's, it's hard for me to even say this. When would you like Councilor Stevens's position filled? Optimally.
Optimally. I mean, that's a hard,
Long word.
Well, I need the
How much
answer
we-
because it's going to direct what we do and how fast we do it and all that, so.
Do we meet twice in August or not?
Well, I'm going to say yes. We try to give you one meeting in August where we give you a little summer break, but the last 2 years, because of the workflow, it's been impossible. But if we did not meet, it would be the second meeting in August. So I would say right now, possibly, but if not, we could use that second meeting in August to do just this special meeting for this purpose if,
we need to,
yeah. Or we could make that the major thrust of that meeting, and any other business items that had to be done, we could do those after that, too.
Well, if we posted soon, then we'd be first week of July
Okay, so,
on 30 days,
I
and
hear
then
what
we
you're
would
s-
have to work through interviews, and that could easily take
July.
several weeks, the rest of the July, right? And so it kind of seems to me like then we're up to August for council to talk about it more than likely.
second meeting in August?
That's what I would say, either the
Okay.
second meeting in August, or if August is jammed with other stuff, then the first one in September.
Okay.
But I don't see moving it any faster than that.
Okay.
It's going to be hard to move it faster. I think there'll be things that slow us down.
Okay, so that gives us time, because I think what you'll want to do, you'll want to flesh out what questions and get concurrence from your fellow elected officials, and it might not hurt for you to have some basic criteria. Like, if you're going to apply, you have to meet this certain checklist. Because more than anything, that's going to weed out candidates that may not meet what your ideals are of somebody that you want to be a city councilor. And I think it gets to something that Councilor West has, that you're not just, picking willy-nilly or whatever. I don't know what the concern is, but that you would have some kind of a standard that you all agree to in terms of criteria for who you would interview. And that would also narrow the field a little bit for you. It's just something to think about.
Well, so we'd have to spend a little time figuring that out.
Figuring that out.
You know, the only criteria I didn't read in the charter is that someone needs to be a resident for 12 months immediately preceding.
We would do all the vetting of the charter requirements for you, so that would be a checklist that we would, and if we wouldn't even forward an application if they didn't meet the basic
Didn't meet the
requirements.
base requirement.
And we would call that person and tell them why.
Yeah.
So
You
The
think
two
that
things
that-
I would need from council are the criteria, if you go that route, and the questions that you want to put in the application. We can reformat the application to make it specific for this special
Yeah.
appointment.
Do you think it's critical that we do that before we even post it?
Yes.
Would that, with 3 or more of us are together, that's a,
You can't do it 3.
can't.
What
So
you
how would
could
we do that?
What you could do is the mayor could work with me or work with council president to say, here's what I think are the important criteria, and then I could forward that off to you individually and say, if you have any individual comments on that, respond to me, so we're not doing serial meetings. We could handle it that way, and then I could coalesce with the mayor, and we could sit down and figure out what the final is, and then you guys could decide that way.
That's probably good. That's probably means that we're going to not post before the middle of this month.
It depends on how efficient you are, Mayor.
I'm telling you, it means we're not going to post before.
I know you got a lot going on right now. Okay. So I would need the questions and I would need the criteria for the screening of applicants. And then once we have that, we can post, advertise. We put it on our website and press release and far and wide for everything else we do.
Okay. Council, are you good with this plan?
Yes.
All right. All right. Is that good enough? And I'll have to be coordinating with you then on specifics? Yeah.
You and Councilor Ackerval can figure out the criteria.
All right. It's a plan then. That's what we're going to do. So anybody that's interested, you can expect that to happen. That will bring us to councilor comments. Starting with Councilor President Ackerval.
This last weekend on Saturday, I attended the Tualatin Valley Fire Rescue Awards and Recognition Ceremony. And that was great to be part of that event. It was my first time in attendance to that event. And a nice opportunity to make note and recognize the service of course, the members of Tualatin Valley, but also members of the community. It was my first time at the event. I did not know, but there's awards that are given to community members that also commit acts of bravery and service to their fellow community members. So it was nice to get to be part of that and talk with some of the recipients as well. There's kind of little brief texts that are read in explanation of events that maybe somebody was involved with, that led to them receiving the award. And there's great emphasis on courage, I think, that's shown. But in my recent interactions with Tualatin Valley, I'd also want to recognize the kindness, that I feel like I see so frequently from the firefighters and paramedics, and it's terrifically important to have that kindness as well in our community. So it was great to be part of that event, and I look forward to next year. So and then also, I think, one place my head's at school is almost wrapping up. We've got less than a week left, right? So we'll all be seeing, some of the youth in our community out and moving around in different ways. And I hope that we're all welcoming of people in the parks and also keeping a careful eye. I think there's more foot traffic in the community in the summertime. So keeping an eye as we're driving in our cars and looking out for some of that foot traffic and kids on bikes and things like that as well. And, you may touch on this, but our to-do list for next week with the end of the school year is the summer reading program at the library. So make sure that everyone's aware of that program and sign up and get going in summer activities. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Steve?
Thank you, Councilor Akval. Right, the summer reading program is always robust. I think there's about 3,000 kids who sign up every summer. So Yeah, that's always great success. And there's an adult reading program too, so for the summer. So let's not forget that. Smaller in numbers, but lots of activities will be going on at the library this summer. The other thing I want to talk about is the wonderful article, if you haven't read it yet, in the Boones Ferry Messenger about Councilor Akval and her day playing as a firefighter. And I'm so jealous. She got to don that equipment and use a fire hose, and I never even thought that was an opportunity for me. Now I blow it, because I'm leaving. But that must have been so much fun, and what a learning experience. And I saw some other photographs that didn't make it into the Boones Ferry Messenger in Bill Evans's office. There were some great ones that you looked like you were just having a ball.
I was.
And so if you haven't read that article yet about Kristen the firefighter, that needs to be a little book.
You like that?
I did.
That's why she's wearing red today.
We need to write and illustrate that book. Okay, so that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Lehan.
Just one reminder of a meeting coming up is tomorrow night. The French Prairie Bridge Task Force meeting is here at City Hall from 6 to 8 to accept their recommendation, finalize a final design. I think they're down to 2, and they'll be selecting a preferred alternative to move forward with getting bid numbers for. And then one thing not really on this list, but I was recently appointed to the Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition, which is what it used to be called, but right off the bat, we changed the name to Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area. And because it's not just the falls and the area around the falls, it's the landings between Oswego and the Wheatland Ferry, so almost to Salem. And that includes Wilsonville and all those other landings going up. And of course, our landing at the time was Boones Ferry Landing. The reason I bring this up is they are preparing a recognition for what they call half-century businesses. So they're looking for businesses that have been anywhere in the heritage area, anywhere up and down that stretch of the river, that have been in business more than 50 years. So not very many spring to my mind in Wilsonville. I mean, the only 2 I can think of is Wilsonville Concrete and Joe Bernert Towing, but who, kind of the same family operating. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be the same people. Obviously, in 50 years, people retire, but generally the same business in generally kind of the same service or products or mix or whatever. So, and I want to put this out to the community. If anyone is aware of any businesses that have been around for 50 years or more, please let me know about it or get that information to me, and I will put it into the group in Oregon City who are looking to acknowledge these businesses in a big event in 2020. So it's not like right around the corner, but, and it doesn't have to be in Wilsonville. It might be Willamette or, Canby. Surely Canby has some. I don't know. Anyway, that was it.
Can I ask a question? Could it be a family farm that butts against the river? Could it be, a family farm.
I think it can.
A farm would be, that's agribusiness, right?
Yeah.
I think I know somebody.
It has to be in business for profit.
Right.
It has to be in business for profit.
Sell product, yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor West.
Thank you. I want to take a moment to give a shout out to some of my favorite ladies in the city. The Wilsonville Peacemakers is a club out of the Wilsonville Community Seniors Group, and they get together, I believe, weekly, and they make some of the most beautiful pieces of art. They quilt. And they don't just quilt just to quilt, they do it with a purpose, so they quilt with a purpose. And that purpose is to really help those that have gone through tragedy, experiencing tragedy. Often they'll be donating quotes to people in hospitals, and those families that get those quotes, those patients are in hospice care or comfort care. And I know firsthand what that's like for a family that's experiencing that life event to get something like that of comfort in a sterile place like a hospital. And they step up in other areas too where they really comfort people. I mean, it's just amazing expression of human love for one another. And they did that for the Villalba fire victims. And I just took possession, I think, of 9 quilts, and I think there might be more coming. And I opened up this bag, and they're stunning. They're absolutely amazing. I mean, they're like, I was like, I mean, you could just hang them on a wall and never want to sleep with them. They're beautiful. And so those will be going out to a lot of the families. Will be getting a lovely letter and a gift of a beautiful quilt from somebody that loved them in their own community in that time. And I know that Councilor Akval has spoke with and has seen some of the devastation these families have gone through. And so it's been kind of on the forefront since the fires happened, I know, for how I've been engaging in the community. But I just really want to thank the Peacemakers for not only for sharing their art and for doing it in such a meaningful, impactful way that will really impact these people's lives. And these are like heirloom pieces. I mean, you could pass these things out. They're beautiful. And then the other thing that I want to say is I want to thank the businesses the last 2 weeks that have really stepped up and have participated in helping these families too. So that's where I've been doing, and yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks very much. And who?
I don't know if that's my button or is that my button, but I don't know.
I wasn't sure either, but it's you.
We have established that I'm number 3.
But I know you didn't do your usual rundown of things, but of all the busy things you have done. But I do think it would be nice if you could update on the Ox Lane and the situation in Salem and where that stands, because there's been a lot of movement. If you could briefly update us about that.
Well, many people have expressed interest in improving the I-5 situation, and Wilsonville worked with ODOT to evaluate options and came up with this plan they call the I-5 Wilsonville Facilities Plan, euphemistically, which basically is to add another lane southbound across the river from Wilsonville Road down to the first couple of exits, extending past the Charbonneau exit down to the 551 exit, and even have a double off-ramp for 551 is what the proposal is. Their analysis says that would significantly reduce weaving and improve traffic flow on the freeway over coming years. They have coupled that with since they'll be building an addition on the bridge to add that additional lane to then do the seismic upgrades for all the rest of the Boone Bridge and try to make it much more secure. We solicited help and had bipartisan support from both Congress people and senators, I should say House people and senators in Salem, introducing their support of this at the Joint Transportation Committee, and I went down and testified there also. Our chamber was there in support, and several other entities also, Clackamas County Business Alliance and others were there. But we collectively made a pretty good pitch, I think, that this is a discrete project you can really get your hands around that has the potential to make a significant improvement, and that it's worth trying to to determine what it would take and how to proceed. The staff work, Mr. Ottenat especially, in working with our lobbyists down there, had sort of tried to take the temperature of things, and we settled on a proposal not to try to fund the whole thing all in one shot, because that seemed like overly challenging and not likely to succeed. So we did work with Courtney Neron to revise the proposal and ask for $3.5 million to do the preliminary engineering and feasibility work for this overall project. And on that basis, it was supported roundly in front of the the Joint House and Senate Transportation Committee. It was voted forward from there unanimously out of that committee, which does not happen every day. And so it sits in Ways and Means Committee now, where funding has to actually be achieved. We are hoping Ways and Means will hold a work session on it and have an opportunity to hear a little more about the details and about why it makes sense. But we are hearing many back channel communications that there's quite a bit of support for this. So we're cautiously optimistic we may achieve success in getting the $3.5 million for preliminary engineering, with which then ODOT would be directed to proceed to do that preliminary work and basically kind of get the project out of the starting gate and get it positioned where, if there were federal funds to become available from some infrastructure work at the federal level, that it might be ready to qualify. And if not this session, but in upcoming sessions, then we make a good pitch that maybe we can find state support for at least a significant portion of it also. So that's really kind of what has happened and what is happening. And I think it is, I mean, this is a federal highway. This is not Wilsonville's highway, but it is our highway. We live here and we live with that. So I think that we have appropriately spent some of our time and political capital, if you wish, trying to move this project forward. And we hope that, that we can continue to make steps on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Why don't we move into our formal public hearings, of which we have several, starting with Resolution 2750, which is our city annual budget.
Resolution number 2750, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville adopting the budget, making appropriations, declaring the ad valorem tax levy, and classifying the levy as provided by ORS 310-060 sub 2 for fiscal year 2019-20.
Thank you. And I have statutory language I need to read. I will call to order Wilsonville City Council public hearing on the city budget, Resolution 2750, as has been read. Ladies and gentlemen, council will take public testimony tonight in a public hearing format, which will be conducted as follows. First, city staff will present their report, and then we will receive testimony by proponents, opponents, and those neither in favor of nor opposed to the proposed resolution. If you wish to testify, please do complete a speaker card from the counter at the side of the room, pass it forward to the city recorder. When called, come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your statement. I do request those providing testimony not repeat testimony already given to council. Simply indicating your agreement with certain prior testimony is entirely sufficient. Ms. Rodacker, Mr. Katko.
Thank you. So we just have one quick slide here just to kind of bring you up to date on where we've at in the adoption process. We did get the budget book out to our budget committee members 2 weeks in advance of the first meeting. That's part of our financial management policies. We did meet twice on May 16th and May 28th. We spent close to 6 hours going over the budget in detail, starting at the top level, looking at it from a citywide view down to the individual program operating budgets. The budget committee did approve the proposed budget as noted in the book, $212,573,216. It did include a .5 FTE addition to public safety for a detective. And there was no need to increase the budget, as they felt they would have adequate budget to cover that increase as well. And that is what is before you this evening. And they did also recommended the full property tax levy of $2 and .5206 per thousand.
Okay. Council, any questions for staff with regard to the proposed city budget?
I would just want to make sure that the public understands that the addition of the detective wasn't a conversation. I mean, we asked a lot of questions, and it wasn't a conversation or an idea come up that the budget committee came up with. It was a recommendation from staff to add that detective at no extra cost. The reason it's an addition, an addendum, was because the budget had already been submitted, and then conversations afterwards.
We need
by
the
staff.
FTE authorization. We're not
Right.
asking for resources, just the FTE authorization.
Right, exactly. But it looks like it was an inclusion that the budget committee might have decided on that, and
Staff
out of conversation, and that's not how that happened. I just want to make that clear.
So who's going to make that clear when you're gone?
Somebody will. He'll be fine.
Other questions? Seeing none. I have not received any speaker cards. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak in this public hearing with regard to the proposed city budget? We already heard from one gentleman that was there for the meetings also. I'm seeing none. Is there nobody to testify? I'm going to close the public hearing. Anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask council, what is your pleasure with regard to the proposal for the city budget adoption as given on the slide before you?
I move to approve resolution number 2750.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is it clear enough that that includes the FTE authorization, Mr. Cosgrove?
So I would say that what I heard
Do you want me to read this?
yeah,
Okay.
so I don't have to.
I move to adopt the fiscal year 2019-20 budget for the city of Wilsonville in the total amount of $212,573,216. Oh, look, sorry. You wrote it. Okay. And levying the full amount of the city general tax rate of $2, or I'll say, well, okay, $2.5206. Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Discussion.
That's me this
Councilor
time.
Ackerval. You're trading number 8s with your partner there.
We'll swat each other away from the button. I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you to the budget committee for the work that they put into the meetings and reviewing the material and the thoughtful questions and comments. And I know I sent you an email to, kind of, it's difficult to send emails because, of course, we need to be mindful of the public meeting and things like that. But I want to try to pass word along in whatever means we can, how appreciative I feel for all of the budget committee members and the work that they put into this process. And also to staff for their excellent presentation and responsiveness to all of the questions, and putting things together in a manner that is, appropriate for the intricacies and the multiple layers, but also making it something that we can digest and collectively, come to understand. So I really appreciate all of that work that has gone in to the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Stevens.
So I agree. I think that the budget meetings went really well. Lots of good questions. I think Chair Andrew Carr did a fantastic job, chairing those meetings and keeping things moving. Staff did an excellent job. The presentations from the department heads were very thorough, and it's a lot to take in. There's a volume of material there and a lot of numbers to start swimming. But, it's the overall look as to, what direction is the city going? How do we keep the quality of life here? What are our priorities in terms of the amenities that people in this city have come to enjoy and value? Our parks, our public safety, and, a detective. I think that's going to be really important. Our transportation system, smart, all those things that combined, make this, we talked about it upstairs, about, the value that brings people want to live here. And there's a reason for that. And the budget is the driver of all that, because all of that takes money to do. And so I appreciate the process and the transparency that both of you did during those meetings. Thank you.
Other questions, discussion? I also thought it was a very collaborative year. I thought the dialogue and the questions, just the practical questions, well, so what does this mean? How should we think about, those sort of things, I think help citizens understand. I know not that many people are going to sit up and watch the whole process, but I think that we are representatives of our community as we sit through this process, and asking questions like that and having staff so well prepared to explain and help us all understand that makes it a very helpful process. So that's great work from the staff, and I certainly would second the thanks to the entire budget committee and the citizens that are on that, because they are asking questions on behalf of the rest of the population also. And we had really very good dialogue. I don't remember a year that I think we've had better discussion. And so that's really, really fun to see, and know that we're getting the understanding and spreading the whole continuation of understanding what our expectations are for the community, and how it works, and how we're able to do the work that the city government does for the whole city. So it's a great process. It's a great process, and it does take a huge amount of work on the staff side. It takes a fair amount of work on the volunteer side for the electeds and the committee members. But I think that we've got a very appropriate vehicle here in front of us. So, anybody want to say anything else about it? No matter what your number is, so. If not, I'm going to ask for the vote then on the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 2750 as has been read into the record, please say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 5-0. Kathy can go home and sleep now.
Yeah.
No,
Not-
she's
not
got
quite.
too long.
Yeah, after the rest of it. Yeah, but that's the big load though, so.
So in order to get Kathy home a little sooner, I could consolidate the next two, read them, we could read them together and then just vote separately if that works for you. All right, resolution number 2751, a resolution declaring the city's eligibility to receive state shared revenues. And resolution number 2752, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state shared revenues.
So we have statutorily a need to conduct another public hearing on these two. So I will formally read the wording that I'm required to read. Hereby called to order the Wilsonville City Council public hearing on resolutions 2751 and 2752 as has been read. Ladies and gentlemen, council will take public testimony tonight in a public hearing format, which will be conducted as follows. First, city staff will present their report. Then we will ask for testimony by proponents, opponents, and those neither in favor nor against the proposed resolutions. If you wish to testify, please complete a speaker card from the counter at the side of the room. Pass it forward to the city recorder. When called, come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your statement. I do request those providing testimony not repeat testimony already given to council. Simply indicating your agreement with certain prior testimony is entirely sufficient.
So ORS 221.760 is for our state shared revenues, and they do require these two public hearings. The first one is for eligibility, and we have to provide 4 or more of the services that are noted at the bottom of the screen. We provide all of them except for the fire protection, so we are eligible for these funds. The second part is electing to expend the funds that we receive. We have approximately $1.8 million from gas tax that is used for our road operating fund, and the another approximately $700,000 for liquor tax, state shared revenue sharing, and cigarette tax. And those are all recorded in our general fund and used for general services. That's it.
Okay. Any questions for staff about state shared revenues? I do not have any speaker cards, but I will ask, is there any member of the public that would like to speak in public hearing on these two resolutions? Awfully lonely up here when nobody wants to talk. That being the case, I will close the public hearing and ask council, what is your pleasure, first of all, with regard to resolution 2751, the city's eligibility to receive state shared revenue?
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2751, and I move to approve resolution number 2.
One at a time.
Okay, the first one.
Please. 2751. Okay, is there a second on 2751?
I'll second.
Moved and second, we approve resolution 2751, eligibility to receive state shared revenue. Any discussion? If not, I will ask for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Bringing us to consideration of 2752. Is there a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2752.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve resolution 2752, which is the city's election to go ahead and receive state shared revenues. Discussion? Not doing this would leave the money on the table. I don't recommend that. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, passes 5-0. Very good. Now the budget committee or the finance department is able to relax a little bit. That brings us to ordinance number 836 on first reading.
Ordinance number 836, first reading on land use public hearing. An ordinance of the City of Wilsonville approving a zone map amendment for the residential agricultural holding zone to the planned development industrial zone with special consideration for screening and buffering from the adjacent existing residential use on approximately 6.16 acres comprising tax lots 300 and 500 of Section 14A, Township 3 South, Range 1 West, Clackamas County, Oregon. Nikolai Pacific LLC is the applicant owner.
Thank you. So here again, there is statutory requirements for the council. So I will formally call to order the public hearing regarding ordinance number 836, as has just been read. I need to ask the council, do any member of the council wish to abstain, declare a conflict of interest, or report any ex parte contact or information gained outside of the hearing?
No.
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 No, thank you. Have all members familiarized themselves with the application?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of council? I see no challenges. Those wishing to testify, please be aware that failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford this council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow this council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the criteria that staff will describe or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which you believe apply to the decision. So we will proceed, starting though, do we have staff presentation? That's you, okay. Following which we will ask for comments by the city attorney, then ask the applicant to make any presentation they wish, and then ask for members of the audience who wish to speak. And we will proceed like that. So, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Knapp and councilors. My name is Cindy Luxhoy. I'm Associate Planner, and I'm here tonight to present for City Council review a zone map amendment for industrial focus, ordinance number 836 and zoning order DB 19-4. As required by statute, I would announce that the criteria applicable to this application are stated on page 2 of the staff report, which has been entered into the record. Copies of the report are available on the counter at the side of the room. Oops, there we go. The industrial focus site is approximately 6.16 acres in 2 parcels located west of Interstate 5 and south of Southwest Beckman Road in northwest Wilsonville. The site is located immediately north of the Walnut Mobile Home Park and is in area of special concern E in the comprehensive plan. The applicant, Nikolai Pacific LLC, has applied for the zone map amendment and a stage 1 master plan to develop the subject property as a speculative industrial flex complex to accommodate multiple industrial users. On May 13th, Development Review Board Panel A approved with conditions and recommended to City Council adoption of the proposed zone map amendment. Tonight, City Council is reviewing this action. The proposal changes the zoning from residential agricultural holding, RAH, to planned development industrial, PDI, consistent with the comprehensive plan designation of industrial and proposed use for the site, subject to considerations of area of special concern E. Area E is planned for industrial uses. However, there are concerns related to continuity and design of development in the area and protection of the Walnut Mobile Home Park, which is zoned residential agricultural holding. A condition of approval for the zone map amendment is that the industrial focused development be carefully designed to promote continuity in design with other development in Area E, and that adequate buffering be included in the site design to minimize disturbance for residents of the Walnut Mobile Home Park. Another condition of approval is that the proposed development be designed to minimize traffic conflicts, in particular from trucks, with residential activities and pedestrians. On May 13th, Development Review Board Panel A also approved with conditions a Stage 1 master plan for the industrial focus property. The Stage 1 master plan is not part of tonight's council review. However, I'd like to provide a little bit of background information about that application. The proposed Stage 1 master plan includes 3 speculative industrial flex buildings totaling approximately 96,000 square feet, developed in 3 phases. The DRB's approval of the Stage 1 master plan includes 3 conditions specifically related to area of special concern E and subsection 4.137.5 of the Wilsonville Code, which is the screening and buffering overlay zone, which is designed to provide separation of potentially conflicting uses, in this case residential and industrial. Subsequent applications, including the Stage 2 final plan and site design review for the proposed project, will be reviewed by the DRB likely in July. And that concludes my report. Thank you, and I can entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you. Council, questions for staff? Councilor Lehan.
You can use this one. It's all yours.
Do we know approximately how many units are in Walnut Park?
Ooh, that is a good question. I am not sure.
I was trying to look at it on Google Maps, but there's just too many trees.
Yeah, I don't
So,
know
oh, well.
specifically.
I just was curious about that.
Counselor Stevens.
Are you able to describe more specifically what buffering means? I mean, is there a definition for that? How, I mean, are we talking about more width? I would imagine it'll be the length of the property from east to west to east or whatever. But then how deep, how far north from the property line would those, whatever, plant material or a fence or whatever that's going to look like?
Yes. So the screening and buffering overlay zone requires a buffer that is from 10 to 20 feet wide.
Okay.
And then landscaping or, and screening, either to include a 6-foot tall wall
Okay.
with landscaping or I believe it's a site obscuring fence, but to a high screen standard for that area. And the project applicant is proposing a 6-foot wall that's separated or that's set back 10 feet from the property line. And between the property line and the wall, there will be landscaping, including trees and ground cover as well as shrubs.
Okay.
In that area.
And no gates or anything through that? I mean, it's private.
There will have to be in the wall, at least one place, there will have to be an opening for a maintenance gate so that they can get out there and
A
maintain
functional
it.
gate, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
like that.
and
Not
monitor
a
the irrigation
path that leads through to that area or anything like that, okay. And then was there any discussion about noise at all in terms of?
Yes, there's some concern with that, just because the nature of the business. There'll be although it's not part of this application, I can provide a little bit of details that we're going to be reviewing in the stage 2. So in the stage 2 review, there will be an industrial building on the eastern part of the site, and then there's going to be a storage yard on the western part of the site.
Oh, I see, okay.
And so we're hoping, or the one aspect of the wall is that it will reduce noise from that development to the mobile home park. Yes,
Can I not ask?
Yep.
I was just going to clarify for council, this was also a concern of DRB, but this hasn't come, this aspect of the application has not yet come to the
okay.
DRB.
Okay.
All that's come is the zoning change approval with these just very general descriptions of where the buildings will be, and all
Okay.
of the details still needs to be filled
it's gonna
in.
be through
Recognize that
another
it's
degree.
human nature that you want to know what the final form is going to be.
But it's
We're limited to the criteria for the zone map and the comp change.
Okay.
But
Okay, I
that will
appreciate
be seriously looked at, because it is a big concern, and DRB has recognized
We
it.
do have noise requirements for decibels and all that from the property line as well.
Okay, thank you
And our
for
planning manager is here as well, so he can.
He's going to get up and tell you that the criteria for the applicable is located on page.
Of appendix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we do have an answer for you on the number of units in the mobile home park. There are actually 57 units
57.
in the mobile home park, yes. And I think also as a point of clarification, normally we would have the zone map amendment and the stage 1 and the stage 2 all in one package. And the reason why we've separated them for this application is that we want to get the zone map amendment through council review and into the appeal period so that we can get all of the application processed by July, middle of July, end of July. So, and the applicant didn't have all the details about the development at the time that they wanted to make the zone map amendment application. So that's why there's that separation.
This is not how we're used to seeing it, so it makes it rather awkward
Yes.
because it's not configured in a way that seems normal.
Correct.
And therefore, it leaves more kind of uncertainty about what ultimately will be proposed. Even your dialogue has just raised questions in my mind, because you indicated there'd be 3 individual buildings built, and then you said one would be a yard on one side. So I completely lost my vision of how that would be 3 buildings if we're going to have a big yard, and how that would interact then with the sound, you know, standard. And
So to clarify, so the master plan is for 3 industrial buildings, 2 on the parcel to the south and 1 on the parcel that's at the north. It's being developed, however, in 3 phases. So phase 1 would include an industrial building on the eastern part of the site and the storage
so
yard.
eastern part of the southern parcel or the northern parcel?
Let me, on the southern parcel.
Okay.
Okay, so let me go back to, maybe I can go back to my, the map here. Okay, so the area that's shown in orange is where that first building would be, and the lighter orange to the west side of that is where the storage yard would be initially. And then the phase 2 would be a second building where the storage yard is, and then phase 3 would be a building in the green area. To clarify there, so, but they are only submitting at this point with their next submittal to DRB, they're just submitting for phase 1, which would be on the southern part of the site, the industrial building facing I-5 and the storage facility to the west of that.
So this is comp plan for PDI, yes?
Yes.
So that's what our long-range plan said this would ultimately become. It's been vacant land, I think, for a long, long time. All the concerns about pedestrian protections, turning movements, trucks, proximity of trucks to the residential, I mean, all of that stuff will come during the DRB hearings,
Yes.
right? Okay. So we have in front of us a letter from the Fair Housing Council of Oregon that asks some fairly succinct questions in somewhat technical language. Can you shed some light on that for us?
Yes, well, I could say that.
So for the record, Dan Pauly, Planning Manager. And the key thing from this letter that is sort of odd for Wilsonville compared to other jurisdictions is our 2-map system, where we have our comprehensive plan map and our zoning map. And this letter doesn't reflect that interaction. So for how most jurisdictions would understand it, the property is essentially zoned or planned for industrial. And so it's a step that we take for a number of reasons, and just the way it was set up, that we rezone it at the time of development, otherwise it stays in this holding zone. But the purpose for our housing needs analysis over the years and purpose of our buildable lands inventory for jobs, this property has always been considered for industrial land. Even going back to the original comprehensive plans and maps for Wilsonville back 40 years ago, this was always shown industrial.
So it's a quirk of our system that all of our holding is residential.
It says residential, but it's really not residential.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's an anomaly in the way our code language is written. It's kind of misleading to say everything's residential holding zone, but they could have just called it holding zone and might have been clearer, but it goes back a long time in history. I also do know one of the attorneys on this letter, and so I certainly can reach out to them and talk to them about their concerns.
The supposition in the letter seems to be that we are chipping away at ground that could be residential within the city.
Because they don't know about our 2-map system.
Right. So that, I mean, for council's sake, I mean, that's the crux of the issue, and staff is telling us that, no, that's not right, because it really has been comprehensive plan to be industrial all along.
Yeah.
Correct.
And and when you read residential holding zone, that makes it sound like it's supposed to be held for residential, but that's not what our code means.
So is that also true of the Walnut Mobile Home Park?
What is the,
It is the same zoning. Yeah.
so that's basically a non-conforming use, right?
No, well, I wouldn't think so.
Well, I mean, it's a legal use, but yeah, it
It's a
doesn't conform.
residential holding zone,
But
it's
if it
being
went
used for
away-
residential. But
So I think, Dan, maybe the thing that would be helpful is in the comprehensive plan, there is specific language that addresses, this is going to be an industrial area, but there is this existing mobile home park there. And the idea is that has priority as long as it is still there. And protections are, there's specific language that says protections need to be observed. If it ever went away of its own volition, then it would default to the industrial. But as long as it's there, it has to be given deference.
Well, if you're contacting them about the zone change part, I would clarify that about the property to the south also
Yeah.
is, in the same position.
It's in the same category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll send them our comprehensive plan language as well.
We'll let Dan explain the two map system.
I'd love to explain that.
And who the heck came up with that name?
Odd name.
Councilor West.
I think that my questions were just answered with Councilor Lehan's questions. Hypothetically, though, could that property not be switched to industrial and could be expanded for more land for affordable housing, another mobile park or anything that would allow people to have just more access to affordable homes? Hypothetically.
So the residential agricultural holding allows like one residential unit. And specifically, it says if a house is built there, that it has to, the like deeds and stuff have to acknowledge that it may become industrial or commercial, whatever the underlying comprehensive plan is. So it could not be built as multiple units.
So can it be like it couldn't be an expansion of a mobile home? It couldn't be anything like that? Okay, thank you.
It's more of a grandfathered in situation. It's to grandfather it in, and the function of it was, you had a lot of agricultural land, of course, when the city was first incorporated, and they didn't want all these farmers to be suddenly having industrial land prices and taxes to, force them to sell prematurely when they had no plans. They wanted to keep on farming. So the Ellickson piece sits there being farmed all these years, and the Filbert Orchard that Wilsonville Concrete has, all that farming still goes on because we have this holding zone situation, and it allows them to farm and still be paying farm taxes, not industrial taxes.
There's the history lesson.
Yeah, thank you.
Context.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? If not, I'll call for public testimony. I have not received any public testimony speaker cards. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on ordinance number 836?
We do have the applicant here as well.
And this should be admitted into the record if it hasn't already.
Yeah. The letter?
City recorder has it. It's in the record.
Okay. So are there any comments further from city attorney that we need to hear?
No, I'll report back to you after I speak to them at second reading. But
Okay, so I do want to give the applicant a chance to make their comments, if the applicants would like to do so.
I don't know who goes first, but I'm Dave Nicolai. I'm the sole owner of Nicolai Pacific and the applicant for this project. I started my business 37 years ago in the city of Tualatin, and I bought the old schoolhouse there 36 years ago. And when I build a property, I don't have problems. I get awards because I take really good care of my property. So we had a meeting last week or the week before, I guess it was last week, with the neighbors in that mobile home park. We showed them what we were going to do. And on the southwest corner, there was a lady that lived right on that corner, and she came out and she actually wrote me a really nice letter, but we've gotten pretty far down the road on what we're going to submit next week. And I've assured all of them that as quiet as a 8-foot wall could be, or a 6-foot wall, you know, is what we'll have. The property will make a little noise, but it won't be as loud as the freeway. And it won't be anywhere near as busy as the other road on the, what's that road, Bokeman, or south on the west side of the property?
Boberg.
Yeah, Boberg, yeah. So but the idea is to build this first building, run my business on it, and then the other piece to the north, the city has talked to us about swapping some land there. So we're talking about that, but I didn't want that to hold anything up. So basically, we're just going to develop the one piece right now and put our inventory on the other piece, and let the north piece just be grass until we go further. So does anybody have any questions?
Council, any questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing any.
Okay. Thank you. Could we be first next time?
Thank you very much. Okay, I still have no speaker cards, so this is going to be kind of the last chance for the public to speak. If you would like to speak as a member of the public, anybody that would like to step forward? I see none, so I'm going to close the public hearing and presume that the applicant has no rebuttal since there wasn't any testimony. That looks like that's the case.
All right, I move to adopt ordinance number 836 on first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moving to second, we adopt 836 on first reading. Discussion?
Yes, I would just say, you know, that we're sensitive to the housing issue here, I think partly because we went through some years ago the closure of Thunderbird, which was much larger, but displaced hundreds of people that we had to scramble to find places for. And so we're acutely aware of the vulnerability of both the individuals that tend to live in these mobile home parks, but just that unlike other people being displaced, if it suddenly is sold, they have 30-day notice and you've got all those units suddenly empty. I mean, suddenly nowhere to go. So it gives us heartburn to consider what could happen there. And yet we understand eventually it will develop into something else because we know the underlying is industrial. But so I'm glad to hear that you've had good discussions with them and you're likewise sensitive to having that continue to be a good neighbor situation there as long as possible. So.
Other discussion? Councilor West.
Yeah, I share Councilor Lehan's concern around the vulnerable housing population. That's regionally an issue, and we talk about, I feel like every council meeting this issue comes up, and making sure that we're taking care of that vulnerable population or those people that may be more adversely affected by displacement. I am really heartened by the fact that you went and have started those conversations as a good neighbor. That's amazing that you've built up, starting to reach out in those relationships. Already saying, you know, I want to be a good neighbor next to you is, I'm just glad to see that that's already started. So I would just second what Lehan said.
Anything else? That being the case, are we ready to vote on the motion to adopt ordinance number 836 on first reading? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And that will come back to us for a second reading. Bring us to city manager business.
Real quick, Mayor, I just wanted to tell you that I attended the Memorial Day ceremony with the Korean War Memorial. Happy to say a few words. It's a great relationship that we have with the Oregon Korean delegation as well as our own Korean War vets. It was about an hour-long ceremony. Had some planes fly over, so it was a pretty cool event. I'm intending to do the ribbon cutting event at iHealth Northwest. Our new protocol is if the mayor can't do it, the council president can't do it, and if the rest of the council is otherwise engaged, it falls to number 3. So I'll be doing that for you, and I'll be welcoming them to the community unless one of you wants to last minute take that 7:30 a.m. shot. Anyone? Okay, I got you. I wanted to compliment Mr. Carlson in our building department. We had a situation with some of the townhomes that were deemed that they couldn't be occupied because there was a transformer issue, so they didn't have power. We got word back that it might take 6 weeks to get this, and Dan was like, this is not acceptable. We need to get this done right away. So he was able to lop about 5 weeks off that and contacted the right person. So those folks that were waiting to get back into those units, we're glad to hear that news. So I wanted to publicly and let you know that the folks in the building division didn't take that as a okay.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Legal.
Well, so for a change, I have 3 things tonight. So I just want to remind everybody that Kinder Morgan is doing their regional disaster drill in Wilsonville on the 25th and 26th. And on the 27th, they will do a presentation to some of the neighborhoods that are located near the pipeline. It's open to the public to come to, but it's specifically geared to addressing concerns that those neighbors might have. That will be sometime on the evening of the 27th, I'm told. Mark Otnott is working with them to arrange for that, and council and also our state representatives are also invited to come to a special portion of the disaster drill to meet with Kinder Morgan and DEQ and EPA and some of the other players that will be there. So that should be an interesting few days. Unfortunately, you don't have to sit through the whole drill because that would be a really long time. So that was one thing. And then the second thing is I gave to you a letter we got from the attorney of the French Prairie asking that we continue to support them in their concerns with respect to the Aurora Airport and that we stay in contact with the Oregon Department of Aviation, letting them know that this, if this master plan if they finally ever do get a master plan put together, that we do want to be part and have input into that because it does affect our citizens. And so the question to you is that something you want to continue to do? And if so, then I can get back to him and let him know that.
I would remind the council that we've had a policy what shall I say, questioning the industrialization of farmland south of the river, which is kind of the context within which Aurora Airport runway extension and the purported master plan have been portrayed. The master plan, according to the attorneys now, is basically admitted to be invalid because it was never legally adopted. So the question becomes, what should we continue to do? The position that the city has had is that we all ought to follow state land use law, and that is everybody, not everybody, but somebody that's a landowner that wants to develop something. So there may or may not be a lot of activity to try to remedy the apparent inadequacies of the master plan process and the status of the master plan itself. Opponents to the Aurora Airport are asking us to reassert the city's interest in being a party to that process if they undertake to re-engage on that process. I tend to think personally that the overflights of Wilsonville do make us an affected party, and that it would be entirely appropriate for the city to ask to be a party to any official process that is reopened or initiated at this point in time. But what does the council think?
When you push on a button?
If you would like to. Councilor Lehan.
Well, I feel strongly that at the very least, we need to be in that IGA and not have this ridiculous map that they cut us out of the corner of. And that was always unfair to the city of Wilsonville, to Clackamas County, for that matter. Even the city of Canby should have been included as an impacted. But they only included Aurora, and the runway is linear, and it's not just a circle around Aurora. It's an ovoid. It's a long, skinny thing. We need a seat at the table, is what I would say. We absolutely have always been entitled to have a seat at the table and to be a part of the process. And we certainly are impacted. And one of the things about this, when people have testified about the expansion of the runway, which is intended to allow larger and larger aircraft to land and take off there, it changes things. I mean, now I hear them all the time at my house, way over in where you live, in the park at Merrifield. Those jets are coming, and they fly out of there usually at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, you can't not be aware of them. And so it's turning it into a different airport than the rural airport that it always was. And that's what's changing it at Charbonneau. Because I hear from people in Charbonneau all the time that they think those jets are coming right over their roof. And those are people who have lived with the small aircraft for decades and not had any particular problem with the prop planes or Columbia helicopter. But these jets are different. The flight paths are, they said they were going to not fly over Charbonneau when they got the tower, but nothing changed. And we don't have a seat at the table, so why would they listen to our concerns? So I don't know. They've been playing fast and loose with the master plan, and I think we have to stay on top of it.
So you would advocate us continuing the policy and position that we've carried all along, which that we are an affected party and we need to be a representative of any discussions that are happening.
Right.
Councilor Stevens.
Well, I would agree with that. Anecdotally, I am seeing, and my neighbors have commented to me about more jets coming over the park at Merrifield. I'm not sure what has changed, and they are big. There was one this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, quite low. What my neighbor said is it's quiet because it's landing. It wasn't making a lot of noise, but the kids even stopped and looked up because it was just low, and it was big. It was pretty. They're
bigger and bigger.
They're bigger. I mean, it was pretty, actually. I thought, it was a brand new, nice jet, but it was there. And it's a different situation. And so, and of course, I know Charbonneau has dealt with this for many years as just out on the golf course. People talk about that all the time. But I agree that, we're handed this packet tonight, and the map, I mean, it's just so strange.
It's laughable.
Yeah, it is, because it's, you try and do this oval shape of impact zone, and it just cuts off at the county line, which they're in the air. It's not a roadmap, it's planes. So if nothing else, we certainly need to have notice of meetings, and I would imagine those are open to the public because it's a state agency. And so having notice, then you basically at least know what's going on. Whether or not you get a seat at the table, it depends upon what what the agency is. But you can at least be informed, and it's transparent. And if for no other reason, that's why we need to know. I'm not quite sure, I didn't get a chance to read this attorney's letter, but we just need to be on the list of people who get information about when an Oregon Department of Aviation meeting is happening, even PAM meetings, whatever's happening at the Aurora Airport. And Friends of French Prairie as well. So, okay.
Would you advocate that we claim to be an impacted party?
I think the IGA, of course, yeah. That was part of that. We were at one point, and then
They drew us out.
Taken off that list. Yeah, and Clackamas County was as well. We were sitting at that table, and then all of a sudden, not invited any longer, not a party to the intergovernmental agreement. So I guess that was a political thing. It happened several years ago, maybe 9-10 years ago. But, it should be an inclusive discussion of the regional area of the airport. So, and Wilsonville is impacted. I volunteer at Memorial Park on a weekly basis, and I watch them go across there too. I mean, it's a part of our life. And if that's going to increase, we need to have a say in what happens there. That air traffic,
Right.
just like our road traffic.
Right. And hours of operation and flight paths and all those things that airports
Right.
negotiate
Safety-
with the cities around them.
Safety issues, yeah, safety issues as well. Right, okay.
Other comments? Councilor Ackervall.
I just would agree that I think that we absolutely should be engaged on this issue, and I think it's a service to people in Wilsonville for us to be engaged and be finding out and have access to information and discussions, and that seems like the responsible thing to do.
Okay. Okay. So do you want a formal action, Ms. Jacobson, or do you feel like you have the tone of the council at this point?
Well, I think I hear at least 4 people saying that their support. All I'm going to do to start with now is just to officially put on the record that we continue to be very interested in this, and we're an impacted party with citizens that are significantly affected, and we want notice. And should the master plan should they start working on changes that are actually finishing it or actually finally making one, that we would like a seat at the table. And I'll draft something and I'll let you look at it before I send it out.
Sounds good.
That sound
Did you
okay
have
with everyone?
When you bring it back, will we look at that before your draft?
I can let you all look at it, yes.
Perfect. Okay. Further legal business?
One more thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a while, but at the tail end of last summer, or maybe it was even into the fall when we had the incident and the shooting incident in Memorial Park, we've been working closely with the police, trying to figure out a way to make, when the weather gets nice, to make sure that we take all precautions that we reasonably can. And so I've been working with our chief of police and Mr. Cosgrove and Ms. Turha in coming up with an exclusion program agreement with Clackamas County, so that gives the sheriff's department the right to enforce, to exclude people who are disorderly or disruptive from all city properties. And then that goes through a Clackamas County hearings process that's already set up and working well in the county. So we'll try that and see if it works well, but this would give them the authority to do that, subject to your concurrence that we should go ahead and sign this thing.
Yeah, what is the basis for that exclusion? Is it trespass, or is it behavior, or is it something else?
It could be all that.
Could be any of those.
It's mostly meant to protect public safety, and you could think of scenarios where somebody might do something in a city facility that would expose others to things that we would not want them exposed to. But it would be used judiciously, and I know there's some concerns at the library about making sure we're not, just excluding people just because we don't like, X, Y, or Z. So it's going to be reserved for like somebody who goes to a park and maybe engages in fist fights on a, regular basis or something like that. So you could think of the worst case scenarios.
Yeah, so one of the, and usually the first time somebody does something that's not acceptable on public property, typically they'll give them a warning or a ticket, but they won't exclude them from the facility for 6 months or for whatever period it's determined they should be excluded. But one of the examples that I talked with the chief about is we had a repeat offender at Memorial Park that would go down there and do donuts in his car and just wreaked havoc with the condition of the parking lot. So that would be an example of where you give him a warning, and then he comes back and does it again, and then he might get an exclusion.
So this would require kind of ongoing close coordination between city staff and the police.
Yeah, it would be, like for a park, it would be in coordination with Mike McCarty. So the library would be Pat Duke, so it would be facility by facility.
Yeah, and we pretty much have listed all of the city's facilities into this so that the police do have authority if they do find somebody that's misbehaving badly.
Without having this formal action, the police would not be able to take.
They need some kind of statutory authority to do it.
Yeah, so this is an accommodation that their hearings officers will give to us because they've been operating the program for a long time, and they do it for other cities, so.
And I think they even do it for some properties here in Wilsonville.
Yes, they do. So the property owners can sign up as well, too. I mean, the other thing we could do is establish our own program and try it all through our municipal court, but it seems like that would be reinventing a wheel, especially since our police officers are Clackamas County's.
Right, and they're familiar with the structure.
And they're
of
very
this.
familiar with this program, and they're most comfortable writing citations on this program.
Councilor Stevens.
Okay, well, I guess my question would be, who is making the contact with, or who generally is making the contact with law enforcement? Is it citizens, or is it
Could be.
staff?
It could be both.
Oh, okay, anybody, or a business owner or property owner?
We've had some recent instances here at City Hall of a citizen coming in and do it, but it was a mental health related issue.
Right.
We look at every instance, individually.
Yeah, so what I would hope, I mean, the officers, I know Chief Werp is really good at, it's more like a diffuse the situation.
Yeah, they're all trained in de-escalation tactics.
Right.
This
And
is really
sometimes you can just let it go.
This
Yeah,
is
as
really
long as you
for those
make it
people.
So people are safe.
Well, it's really for those people who, they've been warned once and they just say, yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And then they come back and do the same thing, and then they do the same thing. So it's really for the repeat offenders.
Okay. Yeah.
Or for somebody that has a really egregious offense.
Right.
Like shooting somebody in the park, perhaps.
Right, we might not want
That
them
would
back
be-
in our park.
That would be bad.
So we can go, it's like
Make them-
progressive discipline. You can start off with the lowest, but you can also jump to the highest. You're not
Yeah.
limited to that.
If
And
necessary.
that's a
Okay.
determination that we would have to make working with law enforcement and department heads.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
So are you looking for a motion on this, or just a?
General concurrence that you're okay that we're
concurrence?
moving in that direction?
Yeah, and Mr. Crosgrove would sign it, or Ms. Troja, they would be the two contact people for the police through this process, so. But just wanted to run it by you because
Yeah.
we're going through their court as opposed to ours.
And then we can report back annually if we have anything that rises to that level.
Okay, council, are we on board with this approach?
Yeah, this is a good idea.
I think we are.
Okay, I'm finally done.
Okay. All right, so we have a short budget meeting to do for urban renewal. Are we prepared to jump right into doing that?
You have to adjourn.
I know, but I didn't want to turn you loose until I knew what I was going to do.
You can turn the city council loose, but the urban renewal board needs to stay.
That's right. So I will adjourn the city council meeting, and let's jump forward if we can directly to the Urban Renewal Agency. I will call to order Urban Renewal Agency meeting for June 3rd, 2017 at 9:09 p.m. and request a roll call, please.
Board Member West.
Here.
Board Member Stevens.
Here.
Board Member Akkerval. Here. Board Member Lehan.
Here.
Chair Knapp.
Here. Thank you. Any member of the public that would like to speak to an urban renewal issue? I see nobody jumping up and saying yes, so I will move on to the consent agenda, please.
Consent agenda minutes of the March 18, 2019 Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
Is there a motion on consent?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Moved and second, we approve consent agenda as read. One item, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0, bringing us to public hearing on URA Resolution 298.
URA Resolution Number 298, it's a legislative hearing. A resolution of the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville adopting the budget, making appropriations, and declaring the intent to collect tax increment for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Thank you. I will call to order Wilsonville Urban Renewal Agency public hearing on URA Resolution 298 as has been read. Ladies and gentlemen, agency will take public testimony tonight in a public hearing format as follows. First, staff will present their report, then we will receive testimony by proponents, opponents, and those neither in favor nor against the proposed resolution. If you wish to testify, please complete a speaker card from the counter at the side of the room, pass forward to the city recorder. When called, come forward to the microphone, state your name and address and make your statement. I do request those providing testimony not repeat testimony already given, simply indicating your agreement with certain prior testimony is sufficient. Ms. Rodacker.
Thank you. So for the URA Budget Committee, we met on last Tuesday. We actually had about a half hour. Usually we're given about 5 minutes, so it was a luxury to be able to actually talk about our great urban renewal districts. The proposed budget was approved as in the budget document at $47,565,963. And of course, this is primarily for the capital project funding and debt service for the urban renewal districts. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to.
Board, any questions for staff?
May I just mention that anybody who's looking to make a motion, we have included a handy-dandy word-by-word motion for you, if you would like to read that.
All right, just for the public's understanding and anyone else that's interested, we are proposing to levy a value on the districts that is less than we could assess.
We under levy, yes.
For the West Side District, we cap it at about $5.1 million in tax revenue. And in the year 2000, it's about $4.2 million. I don't have the assessed value, but I put it in the wording for you. And we do collect a full assessed value for the Coffee Creek, which of course is our new.
The brand new one that we're just getting started on. But we have had a long-term policy here of not taking all the money that we could take for urban renewal to try to allow a little more money to flow back to the other taxing jurisdictions as we have done this. And this has been true for, geez, I've lost track, 10 years?
Yeah, and I think we even actually in the past have removed land from the urban renewal district.
Well, under the old law, we had to do that in order to limit the take. You know, now we can under-assess and not have to take out individual tax lots in order to achieve that.
It's a way of sharing that return on investment with our fellow taxing entities, and the cities have a long history of doing that.
Right. Just for public information. Any questions? All right. I've lost track. Where am I?
You're taking citizen comment.
Citizen comments. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak?
I support approval.
That was,
For the record, that was
Mr. Steiger.
Alan Steiger recommending that you approve the urban renewal budget.
All right, any other public comments? I will close the public hearing and ask the board, what is your pleasure with regard to URA Resolution 298? Shay.
I move to adopt the fiscal year 2019 to 20 budget for the Urban Renewal Agency in the amount of $47,565,963 and set the incremental assessed value in the West Side Plan District to approximately $401,210,000, which will generate an estimated levy of $5,238,840, and set the increment assessed value in the year 2000 Plan District to approximately $322 million, which will generate an estimated levy of $4,200,000, and a levy the full amount of the divide the taxes amount for the Coffee Creek District.
We appreciate that very precise motion, Councilor West. Thank you.
Were they supposed to do, I asked what I was supposed to do.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Not any better.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
I'll make one comment.
Yes, Councilor Stevens. Miss Board Member Stevens.
I really appreciate during the meeting where when we talked about closing these two urban renewal districts, so the West Side Plan and the year 2000, and taking into consideration the other taxing districts, especially the school, so that compression, which probably isn't as much of an issue as it was 3 or 4 years ago or during the recession, so that we not put the school and communicate with the school district.
Yeah, I do have that on my list of.
A list of things to
I can now
do, check. Yeah.
You have a little free time now?
For about 3 weeks. Yeah.
And then I also just want to also say how successful those two urban renewal districts have been for us. I mean, tremendously successful, tremendously. And I do hope Coffee Creek gets rolling quickly. We need a building up there, as you said during the budget. We need a building up there.
Have the road, we need a building.
So I think Jordan Vance is working on that. So, yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion? If not, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to, I lost track.
You don't have
On
to-
URA Resolution 298, as has been read, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Any further business? We are adjourned at 9:17. Thank you.